Dear fellows, welcome to the Museums Lab. With the Museums Lab, you will build new skills, you will expand your knowledge, you will connect with others through networking, and you will explore new areas for personal and professional growth.
You have been selected not only for the talent and the vision, but for the commitment to imagining what museum can mean for communities.
Welcome to the Museums Lab. You are now part of a wonderful program and of a very impressive professional network. But just as much, you are among friends. The Foreign Office is proud to be among the sponsors. Let me invite you to actively build upon your contacts. Let's work together. Let's continue to foster international understanding.
The Museums Lab is the leadership academy for aspiring cultural and scientific leaders in Europe and Africa. And I'm absolutely delighted to meeting all of you here at the museum.
We look forward to the extensive exchanges that you will be having with team members, other fellows, as well as experts taking part in the program to enhance your experiences.
The Museums Lab is a catalyst for people, ideas and institutions to come together to rethink the role of museums in our society.
It's a unique opportunity for talented museum professionals to meet, exchange ideas and collaborate across continents.
The Museums Lab is a collaborative platform that connects heritage establishments beyond borders to share resources together and knowledge and collections while working together to preserve and promote heritage.
Welcome to the Museums Lab family. And first of all, congratulations. You have made it through a very competitive selection process and should be proud of yourselves. We certainly are.
The Museums Lab is this platform that enables you to create networks with practitioners and professionals, and it's for you to maintain these networks so that you can use them to better yourself, your institution, as well as the communities that you do represent. We hope that you're going to enjoy this Museums Lab of 2026.
For me, Museum Lab is a great community and a great experience. So my advice to you would be to completely lean in, be open to learn and join this community with your full experience and have fun as well.
Stay open and stay curious. And know that this program will challenge you at times. Lean into those moments. And remember that the most meaningful learnings happen in conversation, in listening carefully, and in being willing to rethink what we think from now.
So I was a fellow in 2025, and I encourage everyone to keep a growth mindset and to enjoy the time and exchanges that you have together as peers.
Enjoy each and every day in Berlin, at your residence and in Michigari. Talk to each other, make friends, and enjoy.
Challenge each other with respect, with care, and with generosity. You are the leaders of museums of tomorrow. Use this fellowship to help carry the work of cultural institutions forward with intention, empathy, and imagination.
Make the most of this experience. Engage with colleagues, share your ideas, ask critical questions, be open for new perspectives.
Make the most of all the opportunities this program offers. Share your expertise, perspectives, and ideas. Have meaningful discussions and be both critical and open-minded.
We encourage you to come with the curiosity, humility, and bold ideas. Be connected to others on Rwandan side to a high cause.
Welcome to Rwanda. Murakaza neza mu Rwanda.
Our dear friends, our dear colleagues, our dear fellows, you're most welcome to this event. Feel free, as some of the speakers have said in the videos, feel free to ask any question. We are going to be listening to our tremendous speakers this evening, and I encourage everyone to participate in whichever way you can. And please, you write your questions, or you'll be given an opportunity to raise your hand and ask your question. And yeah, we move this together. So I'm very glad to moderate this event. My name is Sewingo Christopher. Greetings from Kampala, Uganda. This is an event that we've been waiting for, and here it is. In a few seconds, or a few minutes, we are going to receive our speakers. We'll give an introduction to the speakers. You'll get to know them. And they are setting this example, they're setting the pace for our participation in the Museums Lab as fellows and colleagues who are interested in following up what is going on. You're most welcome. And yeah, feel at home. To give a bit of context, the Museums Lab 2026 explores evolving role of museums and memorial sites as active agents in public memory and democratic dialogue. This year's theme, Building Futures from Memory, Museums and Memorial Sites as Agents, focuses on how cultural institutions engage contested histories and transform from static repositories to dynamic spaces for negotiation, healing, and social change. So we are encouraged, feel challenged, challenge yourself, challenge your colleagues, and as we move together in this kind of conversation we are going to have today. I've been informing you about the objectives, at least we hope, by the time we finish this conversation. I will have illuminated on how museums and memorials actively shape collective memory and future possibilities. Of course, highlighting strategies for engaging with colonial, authoritarian, and contested histories. I also hope it will explore the democratization of museums through inclusive narratives and community empowerment. Not forgetting, focusing dialogue on memory, reconciliation, and healing as foundations for democratic renewal. You're most welcome to this event. As I mentioned, feel free. If you have any question, kindly don't go away with it. Our speakers are more than happy to answer all these questions you may be having. You're most welcome. Yeah, as we wait for to have our speakers, I will be having my colleagues to talk about the program. They've been running this program. They've been leading us through different kind of processes. They'll be taking us through what the Museums Lab is, and the fellows, I'm pretty sure you've met them before in the processes of application, and also the previous events we've had this day from morning. So those who have not gotten an opportunity to see them, you'll see them. And I'll ask the technical team to bring them on board. Yeah, you're most welcome, Miriam and Sophie. Please take the floor. The audience is waiting for you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for the kind introduction, and wonderful to see you again as one of the alumni moderating this year's kickoff event. That's fantastic. Yeah, also a warm welcome and good afternoon or evening even for some of you from my side. As Chris kindly said, my name is Miriam Kurun, and together with my colleague Solveig Rachel, whom you should be seeing, I think, next to me on the screen, I have the pleasure of co-leading this program. This year marks edition 6 of the fellowship, and it's really wonderful to see so many old and new faces from different fellowship cohorts, partner museums, program partners, and in general friends of the MuseumsLab here today. I think it's clear to say that we have a set of questions that I believe we are all engaging with in different ways, how museums and cultural institutions are navigating the present and how they might be contributing to shaping more equitable futures. At the heart of this year's program, of course, the 2026 fellows, as you mentioned earlier, Chris, 50 museum practitioners from across African and European institutions. They all work in different environments, yet many share a common reality, being part of institutions and contexts that are asked to rethink themselves, to shift and to respond to changing environments and expectations. This year, the theme is focusing on building futures from memory, museums and memorial sites as agents, and it opens up an important space for reflection and exchange on this. It invites us to approach memory not as something fixed or distant, but as something we actively engage with, something that shapes how we understand the present and invites us to imagine different futures. In that sense, the question is not only what museums do, but how they do it, and who is involved in shaping these processes. Within the MuseumsLab, we're interested in how responsibility is practiced in everyday institutional life, how decisions are made, how processes unfold, and how people collaborate and negotiate change with and within museums. Because change does not only involve leadership, it also happens in the in-betweens, in conversations, in meetings, coffee breaks, collaborations, in ways individuals question, challenge, and move things forward from within. I believe this year's fellows are already deeply engaged in these processes. Many of them are working with complex and often sensitive histories. They are navigating institutions where questions of representation, responsibility, accountability, and relevance are becoming increasingly urgent. The MuseumsLab creates a transcontinental space to engage with these realities by asking, what does it mean to hold responsibility in these contexts? How can museums become more open, responsive, and connected to the societies they are part of? How can we work within structures that we might also want to transform? Throughout the program, fellows will engage with a range of approaches, some collaborative, some community-focused, some focus on individual institutions, and others even more experimental. We believe what connects these experiences is a shared commitment to reflecting on leadership from multiple perspectives. Fellows, as museum professionals, will bring diverse experiences and insights into what it means to lead museums today, considering that decision makers are not only managing institutions, but are also expected or inspired to transform them. The MuseumsLab offers a framework to reflect on this, to exchange ideas, and to learn from different contexts and experiences. While the fellows are the center of this program, the questions they are working on resonate beyond the fellowship. They concern all of us who are engaged with cultural institutions in one way or another. So this event is also an invitation to stay connected beyond the fellowship, to follow these conversations, even if you haven't been a fellow yourself, and to reflect with us on what the future of museums can look like. Once again, we're glad you're here. Thank you, welcome, and over to you, dear Solveig.
Thank you, dear Miriam, and welcome, dear fellows. Welcome, everyone, also from my side. And before we continue, we believe it's worth taking a moment to step back and to look at how the Museums Lab came into being and also where it is heading. So the Museums Lab was launched in 2021 at a time where conversations around museums, especially in relation to colonial histories, restitution, and international collaboration, were gaining new urgency. From the very beginning, one idea was clear. If we want to rethink museums, we should not only rethink objects, we have to rethink relationships. So from the outset, the Museums Lab has been very firmly anchored in joint learning, in leadership development, and the drive to build a connected and strong transcontinental network. Because sustainable change depends on the people who shape institutions and on how both individuals and organizations learn and evolve. Its goal was, and it still is actually, to support and empower individuals while contributing to the development of their institutions, expanding perspectives, deepening exchange, and building connections that enable them then to actively shape the future of museums. So by fostering career paths across institutions, across disciplines, and across continents, the Museums Lab invests in a new generation of museum professionals who are equipped to lead change. At the same time, it strengthens institutional learning, encouraging museums to learn with and from one another and to evolve through these shared processes. We believe that this combination of individual development and institutional learning, connected through a strong transcontinental network, can actively drive transformation. At the same time, also, the Museums Lab aims to foster a new kind of collaboration, one that is not based on one-sided perspectives, but on exchange, reciprocity, and shared responsibility. And now, after 5 years, we are beginning to see the impacts of the Museums Lab approach, most visibly in the trajectories of individual fellows and in the ways they work, connect, and take ideas forward, but also in how these processes resonate within institutions and shape ongoing exchanges and ways of collaborating. What is very important to us, this program has never been and will never be static. It continuously adapts, learning from each cohort, refining its formats, its structures, and constantly responding to changing contexts. So today, the Museums Lab is more than a fellowship. It includes a dynamic and evolving alumni network of more than 290 fellows from 56 countries across both continents. It includes a partner museums network of 68 institutions also on both continents, and collaborative initiatives between those that extend beyond the program itself. And together, these elements have become a growing ecosystem. So, looking ahead, the direction is clear. The Museums Lab is part of a broader shift in the museum sector towards institutions that are more connected, more accountable, and more open to multiple perspectives. It contributes to building new ethical frameworks for international collaboration grounded in trust, transparency, and shared ownership. In that sense, the Museums Lab is not just responding to change, it is part of shaping it. And that brings us back to today, because every new cohort, every new conversation, and every new collaboration adds to this evolving process. So as we open this year's program tonight, we are building on a growing community, a shared commitment, and an ongoing journey. So dear Fellows 2026, you are now part of this journey. Be open to what you will encounter and learn here together about others, about institutions, about yourselves. Take the time to really listen, stay curious, and be willing to challenge your assumptions. Make the most of this shared space. Use it to exchange, to question, to support one another. Take this experience as far as you can, and please don't forget to enjoy it all along. And before we close, please allow me to express a few words of really deeply felt gratitude. The program is funded by the DAAD through resources provided by the German Commissioner for Culture and Media and the German Federal Foreign Office. We would like to thank the DAD for the excellent cooperation over so many years and for their passionate support in the implementation of this program. Our sincere gratitude goes to the Federal Foreign Office and the Federal Government Commissioner for Culture and Media for their trust, strong commitment, and continued support, as well as to the German Parliament for its continuous backing and recognition of the importance of this work. So many wonderful people in these institutions and former members of these institutions who have given us and keep giving us so much support. Andreas Görgen, Luisa Braun, Jinan Osman, Stefan Rössel, Elmar Eich, Fabian Richter, Matthias Speidel, just to name a few. A very special thank you to you. Another very special thank you tonight goes to the Rwanda Cultural Heritage Academy, our partner institution for the co-curation and co-hosting of the 2026 program. We very much look forward to visiting you in Rwanda very soon. We also want to warmly thank all our partners, long-standing and new, our academic committee, along with our partner museums, and you also, dear alumni. Each and every one of you brings something unique and deeply valuable to this journey and the network. And it is truly your energy, commitment, and your perspectives that shape and sustain the Museums Lab. Last but not least, thank you to our wonderful speakers tonight, dear Assumpta, dear Ngone. Thank you for opening the Museums Lab 2026. It is truly an honor to have you with us. And I think everyone is very eager now to hear what you have to share. Thank you, dear Chris, for the moderation, and over to you.
Thank you very much, dear Solvik and Miriam, for that wonderful background of the Museums Lab. As mentioned, as an alumni, I'm very happy to have participated in this in a way of moderating, and I'm glad that the fellows are here. They're ready to listen to our wonderful speakers, and perhaps maybe I can shortly give my audience some kind of expectation, tremendous kind of message we are going to listen from our speakers, a critique of the old model. And when we talk about the old model, it's a museum as trophies of a broken system. What exactly it is, what does it mean, and what do we think about that? And this is going to be deciphered by our speakers, the power dynamics, the question of who really controls the narrative, and these are some of the things fellows are going to be listening to, interacting with one another. But of course, specific kind of case studies may come to share the history, how history becomes wound, or what could be the future vision, like the laboratories of memory, or not monuments, for example. So I would like really to welcome my speakers, Assumpta Mugiraneza. Assumpta is a Franco-Rwandan academic with degrees in education studies, social psychology, and political science from the University of Paris. And since 1994, her research has focused on genocide and extreme violence, particularly through discourse analysis, comparing the genocide discourse of Hutu power to Nazi discourse. Since 2010, she has co-founded and directed the Ibida Center of Multimedia Heritage, a center for Rwandan audiovisual archives spanning from more than a century, freely accessible to all at the intersection of academic research and practice. Thank you very much for coming through. Thank you very much for giving us the time. Assumpta, you're most welcome. And I would like to also introduce my other speaker, Dr. Ngoni Fall, who is an independent curator and curatorial cultural policies specialist, consultant. She was the editorial director of the Contemporary African Art Magazine Review. Revoir Noah, you'll forgive me for my bad French, I'll improve steadily from 1994 to 2001. She curated exhibitions in Africa, Europe, and the USA, including for the Biennales of Bamako 2001 and Dakar 2002. She is the author of strategic plans for national and international institutions in Africa, Europe, Asia, and Caribbean, and as well USA. She has been a professor at the Senegal University, Egypt, lecturer at the Makerere School of Fine Art, South Africa, and at the Abdou Mouni University, Niger, and she was the General Commissioner of the Africa 2020 season, a series of more than 1,500 cultural, scientific, and pedagogical events held in 210 French cities from December 2020 to September 2021. You're most welcome, dear Fall. And please, if you don't mind, Assumpta, take the floor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Chris. Thank you to you all. I'm so happy to be with you, and I'm feeling a bit anxious, but please allow me to speak as I am. I'm Rwandan. I'm a French speaker. I'm someone who can't use other things than truth. When I have to say something, I need to say as I think it is. I will try to be with you, and I hope you will understand what I will try to express in my bad English. But what do you know? What do you want? Is also, yeah, we can start with this. Because when I have to speak in Kinyarwanda, I don't have any problem. And I never chose to study in French. Today, if I needed to interact with people, I have to try my bad English. So I will start with two proverbs in Kinyarwanda. In Kinyarwanda, we say, utaganiriye na se, ntamenye icyo sekuru yasize avuze. A person who does not speak with the father cannot know the wisdom passed down by the grandfather. We say also, umuryango utazimuye urazima. A family that does not talk about its hidden secret eventually die out. I started with this intelligence things from Rwanda because we have more than 7,000 proverbs, our philosophy, but these oral tradition swept away by colonial modernization. I would like to invite you to think about the place for Rwandan speech in museum. Looking at Rwanda's past is a story of multiple fractures and amputation. I can quote for a moment, very important. I will try to be quick. Rwanda, before colonization, is an idea of eternity and, immensity also. Rwandan people thought they were with eternity, but also Rwanda is immensity. Don't look at in the map. In ancient Rwanda, we don't have sculpture, we don't have drawing, we don't have painting, not even mask. We are in the heart of Africa, but no mask in our tradition. There is no figurative tradition. Everything exists, but exists in the Kinyarwanda language, which is highly stratified, codified, and very important for us, shared throughout the Rwandan territory. Everyone Rwandan can understand and use this language. It was before colonization. With colonization, this universe was supplanted by a world of writing, which was unknown until then. Colonization and its mission civilisatrice, civilizing mission, abolished the pre-existing world in Rwanda, and it was looked as deemed barbaric, ignorant, pagan, and savage, of course. A new paradigm is taking place, shaping the narratives. It was the second fracture. The third, the problem with independence. Independence in my country, I talk about my country, it was without decolonization. The strategy for independence, it was with a triumph of racial theories. Then independence granted to Rwanda rests in the hand of ethnic political party. The name of this party was Parme Hutu, Parti pour l'émancipation des Hutus, which finds its legitimacy in the racial theories introduced by colonization. Fourth fracture, which was very, very crucial. Discrimination, hate, until extermination. Legitimizing its power through pseudo-colonial theory narratives, running through discriminating and hatred to the extreme. In short, a century, 20th century, was a drought of memory, wandering of, the narrative, the wrong narrative and hate narrative. After this whole fracture, it's my time to ask myself, but also for you on what could be the role of museum in reconciliating or reconnecting with Rwandan narratives. The creation of the first museum in Rwanda, it was a gift from Belgium, from our second colonizer. It was an ethnological museum. It was in which language? What debate arose? What was the power dynamic between Rwandan and the generous donor? What percentage of museum visitors are Rwandans, and what about foreigners? In everyday life, we could ask ourselves, how is the name for expressing museum? We created a name, but who used this name really? Yes, it was in 1998, the Belgian king visited Rwanda, and he decided to give to Rwandan people, to Rwandan government, a museum, an ethnological museum, which is in south, near the National University of Rwanda in Butare. Today we say Huye, but it's not very important. It was the museum during many years. We said Kuri Musée, at the museum, and yeah, we will ask if Rwandan people go to the museum. I'm talking to you from a very small center in Kigali, Iriba Center for Multimedia Heritage. Iriba in Kinyarwanda is the source. We were two women, Anna Guion, a French-American woman, and myself. We decided to put in place a center, not an independent museum, because when we decided to build it, we were around how contribute to go to the new Rwanda. I don't like this new, but it was new after the genocide. We had worked on Gachacha, and we needed to take part of the construction of the new narratives. I insist in S, narratives. And it was not possible to talk about museum, because you talk about museum, you talk as state institution. And the Rwandan people, if you talk about museum, it's not really for ordinary Rwandans, it's for the tourists, foreigners, maybe some people very, and we decided to build a center. What in our center? In 2010, when you talked about history, many people understood genocide history. It was not our focus. We needed to open and try to go beyond genocide. Before genocide, we needed to talk about Rwandan existences, Rwandan past, and it was our objective. We have three strategic axes. The first one was the reconstruction of cultural heritage to preserve and to enable diverse narratives. Because with a genocide, with political violence, since the colonization, the two republics after genocide, it's very important to think about the diversity of narratives. And the second one was psychosocial work and pedagogy in transmission. You can call it dealing with the past. Because you know, when you have a genocide by proximity in your daily life, it's difficult to talk without thinking about psychosocial support, thinking about how to deal with these violent past. Then another one, it's what we call the necessity to build independent space for dealing with the past. And it's not very important for you today. When we work, we try to be holistic. We try to practice the interdisciplinarity. Here we can work on citizen with free access for all at our archives. Everyone can come to us. And when people are with us, they start to talk, because you can see an image, you can hear in a song, and you come back to you without the obligation to be in the framework as you have it in some places in Rwanda. We work on the capacity to speaking up. A Rwandan is people who can gufata ijambo. It's very important in our culture. And when people started to go bad, they were not able to gufata ijambo. We practice also data collection. Rwanda is changing fast, maybe too fast. What we do, we try to film, to photograph, and collect stories of this change. And when we work systematically, we collect the data, because in our workshop, for example, people are able to speak loudly and speak freely. And we think the archive, what we have today will become archive for the future. We work with community. It's very important to go to the community. Don't just say in Kigali and accept to receive people. No, go to the people and how can I say it? Yes, say you have something that I don't have. I need something from you. It's important, but it's not too important. What I can say is I tried to speak about the challenges in my society. My question was how the museum could be respond to our need to make reconciliation, not between perpetrator and victims, because the term of reconciliation here is so special, but reconciliation between the different narratives from the before colonization, during colonization, during the ethnic republic, but also after the genocide. How could we create a space for different narratives without negationism? So I think, yeah, I give you a small example with our small center, because I think we can try differently without changing, but try to create complementarity in our work. Yes, I'm looking forward your feedback question and allow me to finish with Kinyarwanda again. Abashyize hamwe Imana irabasanga. Imana, our God, join those who combine solidarity. I thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Assumpta. I feel so much tempted to say something, but before I do that, I need to call in my other speaker. I'm going to take it from there. Perhaps she could address some of the excitement I already have. Thank you very much. Take the floor, Paul.
Thank you, Chris. Just for the sake of clarification, my last name you have to pronounce Fall. Fall. It means the chosen one. If you say Fall in French, it means I'm crazy.
Apologies.
It's okay.
Apologies.
I
Apologies.
I
We are talking
often
about reconciliation.
yes, precisely.
I'm reconciling with you. Yes.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
it's okay, but I always find it weird when people call me Fall, knowing that I'm Francophone, you know. And when you know the real meaning of my name in Wolof, since I'm from Senegal, it has a totally different meaning, with a totally different history connected precisely to raising armies to fight Arab invasion and then colonial invasion. So that's why it's the chosen one. Warriors. Yes, thank you, Assumpta, for everything you shared. We had a chat the other day, and what I was saying is what I like about what you're doing is how you're doing it. Beyond the motivation of let me do something that is relevant in my society and that can inspire and empower my community. And that's what I expect museums to be. The problem we have is that most of these museums are still running on the 19th century model, even if they are contemporary, modern art museum, science museum, kids museum. It's this kind of almost rigid, conservative frame, as if you were afraid to think differently. And what you're doing, by this thinking you're doing, and you allow yourself to question what you're doing while you're doing it. And to all the fellows, whether you are archivists, you are a curator, you are a mediator, you are an admin in any of those museums, you are always confronted with limitations. Sometimes we are a little bit naive, thinking we're going to enter a museum as a young professional and we're going to make that revolution. It never happens. I know it from experience, because you have this hierarchy, and it starts with the board. Who are the people on the board? Who are the donors? What do they expect from this place? Most of the time, they want a museum that looks like them, a museum that will show a program they would like, but what they want and what they like might be different to what other people or the community at large or the Gen Z wants. And then the burden drops on the museum director, who is supposed to be that link between the staff and the board. So when you go down on the ladder, that's where you find, I call them the happy minions. And I love minions, so don't take it as an offense. Minions are the best. I identify as the minions. So what you are able to do, because it's your own institution, that's the difference between some of the alumni who are working for another institution, where they will find that there's very little latitude. And actually, the only one who could really, really make a revolution or even a coup in a museum is the museum director by making sure the board thinks outside of the box, moves beyond, and is constantly listening to what the audience is saying, how the audience is reacting to all the different programs, and going beyond the numbers. Because most of the time we think of the success of a museum nowadays by how many tickets did we sell, how many people visited the museum. But that's not the point. The point is how many people did we impact? How many people did we inspire? How many people are so excited that they want to come back again and again and again, even sometimes coming 10 times to see the same show? And I saw that for young people during the last Dakar Biennial, who didn't even know that the biennial exhibition was for free and that they could go. So I gathered them, I went with them, I became their kind of art guide. They were taking pictures, not selfies. They spent 3 hours reading all the captions. They were overwhelmed with emotion. And they went every weekend over a month. And they were, every time they were going, they were sharing on WhatsApp comments of what they saw. And it was their first experience. And then they were encouraging their friends to also go say, oh, no, 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 it's not only for rich people, it's not only for white people. There are so many things, there are so many issues, because it's a Pan-African biennial, and so you have artists from all across, let's say, the so-called Black Atlantic. So that's, and when you want to transform a place, it's a matter of leadership. And that leadership, it's in the hands of the museum director first. So how to convince the board, if you don't have the board that is progressive or forward thinking, how can you invite the board to trust you? Because that's what it is. It's a matter of trust. How can you invite the board to trust you? How can you yourself trust your staff? How can you trust the curators? How can you trust the conservators? How can you trust even people who are at the ticketing and who are listening to the audience coming in? And a key role in those museums is the public program, outreach program, community programs, because they are the ones who are in immediate contact with these different audiences and getting the immediate feedback. So you are in a lucky position because you can do what you want. Most of the young people, I guess they are young. I don't know how old they are, but I guess they are young compared to the two of us. Let's say we are from the 20th century, but thinking of a 21st century institution or museum, it's how also they can have those conversations with the leaders of the museum, with the board, deal with their frustrations, because we all have frustrations, and make sure that their voices are heard. And that's what you do, because it's your own organization, it's your own institution. But for those who are working in spaces where, let's say, the director is also the owner, is also the main funder, it's easy. But in other cases, it's not. But it's about trust. Trusting yourself, trusting your colleagues, trusting the audience, and having that sense of humility to listen to each other and to allow yourself the right to fail. Because, and here, that's what I like the Museum Lab. I've been following it via LinkedIn since it started, because when it started, I was like, what is this thing about? And I was following the program, and it was really, really, really inspiring to follow. And in the Museum Lab, you have the word lab. I don't think it was chosen by accident. Lab is also a laboratory where you test, where you're experimenting, and that's what you're doing. So for people who are watching, who are not drinking champagne at Venice Biennial, where there's chaos, so you better be here with us, believe me. I've been receiving WhatsApp from some of my friends pissed off to be there in the cold and in the chaos with the boycott. So be here with the change makers and think how you can make an impact. It's by having that humility and what you've said, Assumpta, I think it's a good way to think about how you grow an institution. For somebody who is in an institution that is just an employee, whether it's a small employee or whether it's a leader, it's about thinking collectively. That's what we call in French the collective intelligence. And if you can stop a little bit this hierarchy that we can find in some big museums, and it's smaller, it's almost always more possible in small institutions than in the big ones. Try to transform the Louvre, you're wasting your time, for instance. I don't want to talk too much, otherwise I could go on for hours.
Wow. Thank you very much, Fal. Now I think I can pronounce it
Ngone. Fal
properly,
is
right?
my last name.
Ngone. Okay. Ngone.
Ngone
Thank
means
you very much.
badass.
Thank you very much for this wonderful submission, and thank you very much, Assumpta. The issue of names, it's going to be chaotic everywhere. Sometimes people call me Sebiongo, and I'm Sebiongo. They call me Sebiongo, Sebongo. So I'm very sorry for that hiccup in the name. I really thank you for your presentations and the follow back kind of conversation you're giving in Ngone. It is really very interesting. I hope our audience, our fellows can start ask questions maybe. Please feel free to ask questions. They will be highlighted and they will be answered by our speakers, or even maybe somebody from the audience can take up a responsibility to answer some kind of queries. One thing I'm taking from this submission, actually getting it from the last submission, the lab, test, experiment, re-evolve, and challenge your perspective. That way, we are going to think collectively. And this is why the Museums Lab is there. And this is why the fellows are called in from different kind of perspectives, and know that we have leaders here as well, museum leaders as well in the fellows. So as a leader, we are challenged. How best do we trust our colleagues? How best do we engage publics? What do we call our publics? And from Assumpta's submission or presentation, the style she's using to exhibit the different narratives. Every narrative matter. And when you were saying that, you reminded me of one of the stories of I think Chimamanda Ngozi, who is talking about the one single side story. And this actually comes to your submission that we need in our spaces, museum spaces or cultural spaces. How do we handle narratives? Who decides what to put out there, and how do we engage it or engage with it? So I'm very grateful to hear that. And the issue of the young people or the youth is also coming in here. I was facilitating a panel discussion as well, where we engaged youth, and we were asking different kind of questions, and people being given platform to engage. How do they think they need to be engaged, and what museums, all cultural heritage or natural heritage spaces mean to them? And what came out from that conversation is not so much different from here. And guys were like, until we actively and inclusively engage the young people are going to consider our places or our spaces irrelevant to them. And that is not a good news, because at the end of the day, as you mentioned, Ngone, at some point we are not going to be there. But these folks are coming. So what do we put out there to them? So thank you very much. I'm not sure if there is any question for now. We can put it to the speakers. Maybe some kind of reflective question, Assumpta, in what you're trying to do, as Ngoni talked about the frustration. I'm pretty sure all of us were frustrated. I keep talking about that. How have you managed to go through the frustrations of countering what actually people have in terms of perspectives of your work. Now we are talking about the museum board of trustees or directors. If we have this kind of dynamics, what do museums or these cultural spaces, who do they serve? Whose interest do they serve? So how have you gone through this kind of dynamics in case you've actually found yourself in them in your work you're doing?
Thank you. To be frank, I think frustration is not my business. My principal concern is I'm an adult in Rwanda. I'm a native from Rwanda. I was born in Rwanda and I left Rwanda when I was 21 years to France. And I knew my country, I knew my people. And when genocide occurred, I was not able to start to explain this event with the very simple explanation like, oh, they were Hutu. Of course, the Hutu have to machete Tutsi. I was not able to use, oh, do you know, the Tutsi are very bad, and you can understand why the brothers macheted them. I had to be honest with me and say, oh my God, I can't understand. It was a fundamental moment for me. I knew that I will need to understand without the facility to understand. It's why my first area for investigation was the Nazi speech, because I needed to think about what I heard on my country. And another thing was, if I can change the history, I will need to understand, to try to understand, especially to give, an opportunity, even small opportunity, to a new generation to understand without being victim of the, how can I say it? You say, it happened because. We can't find any because with what happened in my country. We can try to find factors, but if I have to speak in French, I will use la causalité mécanique. It's not operational in Rwanda. If you explain with it was because you take risk to how can I say it, to entretenir is to continuous this risk to repeat the same thing. So I was convinced that at my age, 27 in 94, I was one of the adults who had the opportunity to study, and my God, I was still alive, because many people on my age were killed or became killers. And I had to do everything I can to do for our new generation, for my people. And it's why when I come back to Rwanda, it was not easy because here everyone experienced genocide. As victims, as perpetrator, as family from perpetrator, from victims, as fighter, and we live together again without any separation. We are together. If I can take an example, imagine a court after the Second World War, where you put a small party of Poland, a small party of France, a small party of not yet Israel, but yes, Jewish people, a small party from America. You put everything together, you check and you put in the table and say, now you have to live to relive together. This, it was new. It's something, even today, sometimes I'm asking myself how we're able to relive again together. But yeah, with this conscience, you have to work without considering the boss, the big car, the beaucoup d'argent. I have many things to do. Then I don't have time to be frustrated. Sometimes I'm very angry and I'm able to say, I don't agree with you, but we have many things to do. I think we don't have time to pay to the petit choses, the small thing without importance. I'm an adult in this country and I have many, many things to do before I die. Sorry.
You said it all. This is interesting. Thank you very much for your submission. Maybe I would like to take some questions from our audience, and maybe I will come back and we engage more. There's a question from Ismahan, and is from Documentation and Museum for Migration in Germany, and is asking Assumpta, could you please elaborate on the challenges and complexities around the concept of reconciliation in Rwanda with regards to the genocide?
It's a very good question, but it's so difficult to talk about. This very important consideration, because do you know, when you talk about reconciliation, you have to, you must consider it two parts in confrontation. Allow me to let you remember that in the genocide, you can't talk about two parts. There is no confrontation in genocide. You have innocent victims and you have killers. If you are okay with me, we can go proceed and say, but before genocide, there is an ideology, a hate ideology, there is manipulation, there is hate speech, and some people can think that they have enemy in the victims. When I have to explain, when I have to elaborate about reconciliation, I use again the one-land concept. And we don't have time now for talking about the concept of Punga, which is the center of reconciliation, which is the no, it's very, very hard. But what I can say, we tried to relive together because there was a clear victory against the regime, genocidal regime. It's very important to recognize this. There was also a war, and there was a clear victory of RPF, Rwandan Patriotic Front, and the genocidal regime was defeated. Okay, there was another thing. It was the political win from RPF, which even before genocide was every Rwandan has the right to live in his country. And with our victory, we will live together in our small but our own country. And with this political will, they have to open the country for, of course, the victims, but also the perpetrator. Rwanda is so difficult. It's a strange country. We can in morning we can talk about justice. In the afternoon we'll talk about memory, and in the evening we'll talk about reconciliation. We can't avoid anything because we need all these things. It's not easy. It's not. When I talk about reconciliation, I'm not agree with the statistics, official statistics. Sorry, it's me. It's just Assumpta. I'm in my country. I'm a citizen, and it's my freedom to say we don't need to talk about nights 5 or 4 today, 7, I don't know, a percentage very, very high. But what I can see is today we live together. After this conversation, I can go and go everywhere in Rwanda without fear to be attacked. We live together, and among adults, we know everything. We know who is who. We know which woman have her man in the prison because he committed the genocide. With young people is more simple or difficult, I don't know. And yes, it's difficult to talk about reconciliation, but we can talk to the capacity to try to live again together. And this is true. We'll be able to stabilize and strengthening this for new generation. Oh mon Dieu. I would like to say yes, but we have to fight again.
Thank you very much for your submission, and I'm pretty sure we are picking quite a number of interesting stuff. If we can hold on there, I would like to go to Ngone. Somebody is asking a question. It's directed to you. Isabel Beirico, ICOM Netherlands, and is asking, could you please elaborate more about the role of leadership in transforming museums? How can we, not as museum workers, but as visitors, bring to leadership the kind of changes we want to expect? The floor is yours, Ngone.
Okay, so we as visitors and not as workers, the kind of changes we want. But what do you want? What do you expect? because maybe what you want as an individual might be different from what another visitor wants, uh, another of your colleague wants. So it's sometimes you have these contradictions. People want different things for the same institution. So when you say the impact we want or the changes we want as visitors, but what do visitors want? Are we listening to visitors? Some museums now are starting to do surveys and questionnaires. Most of the time visitors don't care and don't answer. But how can you know that people were challenged, inspired, and want to come back? Um, of course, when you go to a science museum, you're going to learn about science. If you go to an art museum, you're going to see art, but also the art, especially modern and contemporary. What is it telling you about the society you live in? So it's what kind of platform that is producing, sharing knowledge are we having? You know, I remember when I was a kid in Dakar, Senegal. For me, going to a museum was the most frustrating thing when we had to do these school visits. You can't run, you can't laugh, you can't talk loud, you can't jump, you can't sing, you can't drink, you can't eat. So actually, we were just forced to passively look at stuff, and I deliberately say stuff because that's the mind set of a 10-year-old kid. And you get out and you're supposed to do a homework saying what was nice and what was not nice about the museum. But it wasn't cool. And I don't think it was cool for any of my classmates at that time. But things have changed. Now, it's not that you can drink and eat in a museum, but at least there's this kind of, and also some works or even exhibition. I'm an architect by training, and I think that's what brought me back to museum is thinking about visitors' experience. What kind of experience that involves your five senses, whether it's your body, what are you thinking about your emotions, how do you feel? So that visitor experience for me was something very interesting as an exhibition designer to test and to see how the audience will react. And I will do that also when I create in spaces. I will follow a crowd anonymously and listen to the comments they are making, whether it's a comment on an artwork, a comment on the institution, any kind of comment, because that gives you the temperature. Are you getting something right or are you losing it? And I think I will say to all of you, don't spend most of your time in your office just working, but be in the gallery spaces, talk to people, follow, be a spy, listen, because of course if they know you work there, they might, and that you may be the curator of the show, they might not want to tell you the truth of what they think. But how can you listen and then hope that leaders will listen to you? And if you are a leader, have those weekly, monthly meeting with your staff, listening to them and allow them to be openly critical. Because if you take things too personal just because you are the boss, then that's a dictatorship. It's not, and that's not what we want from museums, not in nowadays. And then expect that on the leadership level, it will go up to the museum director, who will have those conversations with the board of trustees if needed, if needed. But to keep the communication channels always open, I think that's what leadership is about. Actually, that's how I see things. And what Assumpta is doing with her center, it's also about dealing with all those frustration, but it's different type of frustration. We're talking here about a country who experienced the biggest genocide in the 20th century, last 20th century, after the Second World War, of course. So it's about having that humility to listen, and it's not about mathematics. So one way of doing things, can people question it and say, can we try differently? And trust your curators and trust the public program. But a good leader is somebody who listens, who is self-critical, and who trusts the team they work with. If that
Thank you
answers.
very much. Yep, thank you very much. Hopefully, your answer is at home to the question. And please kindly, you're encouraged to raise your hands to ask questions. Feel free. I mean, I would be happy to see somebody raise their hand and they ask their question physically. Otherwise, keep the questions coming. If we have not been able to answer all the questions, we'll ask our dear speakers, maybe they can respond to these questions if we haven't managed to tackle them here, and then we can send the response as a process of following up on these questions. But kindly raise your hands if you want to ask any question. My colleagues will give you a spotlight to ask your question physically. And I'm not sure if there is one. If there isn't one, there is a very interesting question here. Still is coming to you, Assumpta, from Peter Jegede, from Olusen Obasanjo Presidential Library, Nigeria. He says, the Rwandan genocide is apparently a contested history, much like the Nigerian Civil War between 1967 and 70. How is the history being managed to foster unity in Rwanda, despite the lasting impacts in the country? And what is the role of museums in this kind of management? And I'm pretty sure you tackled a few of elements on this question, but please feel free to expound more on this question. Thank you very much, Peter, for asking this question.
Thank you, Peter. How can I start? No, the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda is not the most contested. I can say it's different because the genocide was between 7th of April to July, to 4th July. 3 months. And I repeat it, the victory of the RPF was clear, and it was the only forces who fought against genocide and stopped the genocide. It was clear. And in November the same year, the UN recognized that it was a genocide without a precise genocide against who. Of course, we are in Africa, we are in Rwanda, a small country, no one knew what's this country. They said Rwandan genocide. But it was the same thing in Rwanda. We were lost. It was not easy in this time to use Tutsi, a genocide Tutsi, because this concept of Hutu and Tutsi were in the heart of the extermination project. And people has fear when you pronounced Tutsi, for example. If you said Tutsi, it was victims. If you said Hutu, it was like criminal. And the political from RPF political was also to abolish these concept in public space. They said before genocide, everyone has to in his ID, in any administrative paper, you had Hutu, Tutsi, Twa, for a year. And it was everywhere, even in the classroom. Many times the teachers has to count how many Tutsis, how many Hutus. It was everywhere. After the genocide, the new party decided to avoid this concept from public spaces. So what I can try to say, the genocide was in clear way. It was in the day, and it was, when I say by proximity, it's between neighbors, between teachers themselves. Sometimes it was in church, some priests were killed, some confrères, as we say in French. How can I say it? Gone. Confrère in
Fellows,
English.
fellows.
Okay. Do you know, it was before the RPF defeated the regime. They did the genocide everywhere. With they sang. It was a very job what they were supposed to do, to accomplish. Yes, of course, after genocide, you can see. Sometimes it's so difficult to talk about it because it's not just a subject of knowledge for me, it's also my own history. Yeah. And of course, some people need to practice negationism, but we had, the UN recognized that it was a genocide. Some years after, they recognized that it was against Tutsi. We had also the International Criminal in Arusha. It was just after some months after genocide, and it was another thing. What was important for an African genocide? Sorry to talk like that. And we had also gacaca jurisdictions in Rwanda, and yeah, it's not easy to, because you can experience a genocide. You don't become a specialist of genocide. And sometimes people think, I experienced genocide, I can talk about it. No, there is many ignorances around genocide. I think we have again to work and with not just a side of victims and side of perpetrators. We need to work on as a subject of knowledge, not just subject of testimony or being against or with. Genocide. The genocide against Tutsi is a subject. I think it's a very known subject. I can see in Rwanda that we have many young Africans who come to study in Rwanda from everywhere, and they will become also the ambassador of memory, not memory for Tutsi, memory of our country, memory of our people, memory of Africa, because I can feel today with many areas in Africa. Yeah, it was the last of 20th century, but I'm very afraid about this century.
Thank you very much, Assumpta, for that intervention. And I think the one who asked the question, he has also commented that thank you for the clarification. I think you've stressed well what he was asking. Now, allow me to read some interesting comments from our YouTubers, the one who are following us on a live stream. Top-down paradigm can't bring anything towards perfect progression. of the future of heritage sustainably over the world. That is the comment. We are proud that Rwanda Cultural Heritage Academy try to maintain Rwandan museums and engage Rwandan youth. So the question and the concept of youth inclusivity and engagement is also here in the comment. And Nkusi David, thank you very much, Nkusi. This is a very good friend of mine as well. Memory keeps history in motion. Museums are custodians of memory, ought to be understood, valued, cared, and enjoyed. However, the colonial hangover has distanced communities from engagement. And actually, as a follow-up question, he's asking, this I think goes to either of you or anyone from the audience. Can anyone take us through the dynamics and principles of the best practices of community engagement? That is also a concern. It came as in a comment section, but it is a question. If you can enlighten a bit on how can we engage the communities, maybe through your experiences, how you've been working with people, you've been engaging people, and as you mentioned, Ingoni, that you asked curators or leaders or directors or people working in the museum not to stay much in their offices. There is something I always called an evening sweep, especially when we have schools. They normally come with a list of questions. So I've always been interested in knowing which kind of questions do these kids actually get from their teachers, just to align or to think what actually interests them in the museum. And when you mentioned that, you reminded me of that thing, and I'm going to continue doing the same. And maybe I will be still having an afternoon sweep in the museum and interact with the visitors just to get feedback. So thank you very much on that. So if you can tackle on the issue of community engagement.
Well, the context is important. If you are working in a museum in Paris, in Brooklyn, in Dakar, in Cape Town, in Berlin, in Seoul, in Abu Dhabi, you have a different audience. So at the end of the day, it's about knowing your audience. That is important. You're not doing this museum or working for this museum for yourself or for your colleagues. So it goes back to where are you speaking from? The context matters. And who are you speaking to? Who are you trying to share stories with, regardless of the kind of stories? Now you can say, okay, but then what about touring exhibitions? Well, museums are very careful when they are approached and say, oh, we did this exhibition, let's say in Brooklyn. Are you interested, you in Dakar? Why would Dakar be interested in an exhibition in Brooklyn? What is the exhibition about? What are the stories? And how then can you translate those stories to your different audiences? And that's why to have a team that's talking to each other is important, because the creator will come up with a concept and start developing the concept, whether it's with archives, whether it's with artists, let's say. But then you have to talk to the public program department. You have to talk to the mediators. So actually, you're first testing, and before your exhibition is approved, it has to be approved by, let's say, the chief curator or by the museum director. So you have to pitch your idea. So if they don't get it, it means your concept is weak, or you don't know how to share your ideas. So being able to share your ideas and to be able to get, let's say, the decision makers and the funders, because sometimes you also have to fundraise when you're doing a project. So if the funders are not excited or inspired, how can you expect the audience to be? So how do you share your idea? That's the step number one. And then how do you, when you're developing it, make sure you're involving all the other departments who need to be involved, whether it's those who are fundraising, those who are doing the public relations, those who are also in the publication department. And I would say again the most important ones, those who are at the public program in mediation department, because sometimes they could give you comments that will force you to rethink how you're developing your project. So it's never about let's do a ready-made. And very few museums will accept, let's say, a touring exhibition unless they've been involved from the beginning or they saw it in a different location. I know that I saw a great exhibition on the life of Fela Kuti in Lagos last year. And I was with a colleague of mine who is the director of a museum in Los Angeles. And she was jumping like a monkey. She was completely excited. Okay, she's Italian, so of course she's always excited. And then she was saying, I have to bring this exhibition to my museum in California. And okay, of course the exhibition was very successful in Lagos because you're in Lagos. That's where Fela is from. And I was trying to understand. I could understand why she's interested personally as an Italian in Fela from my generation. But why would she think that people in Los Angeles will be interested in that exhibition? Because that exhibition was inspiring. It really got you into the life of Fela, going beyond just the musician or the political activist, but the family, the role of her mother, all his travels, and all the people and things that impacted his life. And then you start seeing all these global connections. Today it's trending to say, oh, we're all global, we're all in the global world. But people have been operating in this multi-layer cultural landscape for decades. And I was thinking maybe her board will never be interested. And the board was even more excited than her. And so they are now planning to bring that show that was designed for a Lagosian audience to almost 80% white audience in California. But it has to do with what inspires you? Are you expecting your audience to be as inspired? And it will be interesting to see when the exhibition goes to Los Angeles, what are the kind of toolkits for mediation that they are going to use? Because they might be with an audience who have no clue who Fela is, have no clue who her mother was, have no clue about the history of Nigeria, etc., etc. So how are you going to give all those different context-based information without being too pedagogical and too boring, and keep the excitement of the amazing exhibition it was with a great exhibition design? Well, the exhibition designer is an architect and a colleague, so maybe that's why it was great, and a good friend of mine. But so it's always a collaboration. So it's how you translate things and share your ideas with people around. Even sometimes when I write, I first send it to my sister, who has nothing to do with the art world. If she doesn't get it, it means that my text is not good.
Perfect, perfect. That's interesting. There is something I'm picking from that, the buddy system. If you're doing something in the museum, it doesn't hurt to involve your colleague from a different department, because they can bring a new perspective. And it also takes us back to what you mentioned earlier, the lab. Test, try it, and ensure that you claim the right to fail and reimagine again. So that is very interesting. Allow me to read. It seems I don't have a physical hand. I'll keep reading these questions and comments. We still have a few minutes. I'll need to use those. Unfortunately, we have a saying in my language, sometimes you have to let go something nice, interesting. So in a few minutes, we'll be actually closing this event, but allow me to read one of the comments from YouTube again. Thank you very much, colleagues who are bringing this comment through. Genocide is an occurring thing in our current world order. We have also xenophobia and creative anti-imperialism and coloniality regimes bringing hope into the continent. Are museums actively aware of that And this is a reflective question we can take, all of us here, and ask ourselves, what are we doing with all what we are seeing, with all what we are hearing? How do we, what are we doing towards that? I like the aspect and the concept of the of Assumpta, how she's trying to do her work, but also the background you've given, Ngone, in what you've been doing, and the enthusiasm and kind of recommendations you're giving. I'm pretty sure everyone here is benefiting. There is a question here from Moses Nkufa from the Department of Museums and Monuments of Malawi. What role does serving justice play in reconciliation? What could be the role of museums in this case of Rwanda? Maybe I'm pretty sure you mentioned quite a lot on this, but I guess you can maybe just a small kind of hint about the question, and maybe we can go to another question as well. Thank you very much, Assumpta. I'm sorry, most of the questions are coming to you because I think this is a very hot cake and a very sweet tea for us to talk about now that we are entering into the modules, and our fellows will be looking at coming to Kigali and interact with these spaces, and also people like you. It's important for us to have this kind of conversation. So thank you very much. Take the floor.
Thank you. I had decided to avoid the discussion between museum and memorial because for me it was very hard to think, to share my questions about museum, and I talked about just a museum, not the 8 others. And if you use the memorial concept here in Rwanda, you are talking about genocide, because this concept was not known in Rwanda before genocide. And if you talk about memoriali, sorry, it's also because we lost our, how can I say it, our engagement in our history. We use also many times the foreigners concept. Memorial became a new name for the space where people were killed, sometimes to the space for remembering, sometimes is the common memorial, state memorial, especially because it's another concern in Rwanda. Yeah. For me, is very important, and it's why I was very, very happy when I was I heard about the Museum Lab in Rwanda. It's because I think we need to have people like you, like Madame Ngone Fal, to think together and open and try to criticize sometimes our daily practices. Because if you use terms of like museum or memorial, and yeah, let's talk about memorial. The biggest memorial in Rwanda is known as Kigali Genocide Memorial. I'm sorry. Again, I'm not very diplomatic, but it's my role for avoiding any frustration. You go there and you will feel, if you know the other memorials, from Paris, from Berlin, from Yad Vashem and Washington, you will feel the piece from this idea who try to make a Rwandan narrative without success. They are my very best friends, but because we need to think, I can use it. It's very difficult here to think about the memorial because memorial brings genocide, and if you bring genocide, we are all consent. No one is outside of genocide in this country, okay? And it's very difficult. If we go where I started with this idea that there is no Rwandan way, we are starting today. But the first museum in Rwanda, it was in the 84. The first time the Belgian king said, we will give you a museum. And the memorial started after the genocide. Without Rwandan voice, it's the difficult. In this memorial, you go there is, I can't use my knowledge here because it's my very, very important work. How understand the way from Rwandan voice when they are trying to conceptualize what happened in 94. We don't have any trace for this. We don't have space for Rwandan voices, for Rwandan questioning. And yeah, maybe with with new generation, we will bring new ways, and we will need to be attentive to the voices because we lost even the death. Yeah, I'm also a sociologist, and sometimes I take time to support, to give support, psychological support. And I knew how people are disappointed with the new practices around death, because we had everywhere the people without life, and the bodies were everywhere. And we need time to think about it. Justice, reconciliation, and the museum, I think it will be how can I say it, a result of our today work. I would like to have a space for gacaca jurisdiction, not as we did with homegrown solutions. I think we need something around gacaca, which was the justice by proximity, as we had a genocide by proximity, but it's not yet ready. And I hope we will don't make it in place next year, because we go fast in Rwanda. You have an idea, 2 months after, yeah, sorry. I
thank you. Thank you very much, Assumpta, for your intervention. And I think more questions are still coming in. I am afraid we may not be able to answer all of them, but as I said, we can keep track of these questions and we can engage with our speakers. They can help us answer these questions, and maybe we get back to you, since your we are just beginning our module. And yeah, so maybe allow me to read one question. That is from Kunze, a freelancer from Germany. Again, it is coming to you. It's coming to you, Assumpta, but feel free, Ngoni, to come in if you have any kind of thought about the question. You mentioned that you did not want to call your center a museum. Do we need new terms for future centers in order to reflect the role and meaning of these places and to distinguish them from the European idea of museum? Is there even a term for museum in Kinyarwanda? Maybe we can start from there. What would you call a museum in Kinyarwanda?
We have a very good name of museum in Kinyarwanda, but we don't use it because this concept was forged after the musée. We say musée, not musée, musée. Umba kuri musée. Yeah, and I think we can also pay more attention for using the Rwandan concept. Yeah, Ingoro Ndangamuco is the word, but it's also as a palais of, yeah. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm not very diplomatic, but for me, the concept of museum was something that I had to question. And in my country, I'm not sure, maybe my friend from Rwanda Cultural Heritage Academy will respond. I'm not sure if I can decide to put in place a museum. Maybe someone will come to say, Assumpta, you are not allowed to. I'm not sure. When we decided to create our center, the one thing that I was very, very convinced, it was the name in Kinyarwanda, Iriba. Iriba is the source. With la gratuité is free of charge. Go there without any exigence, if I can say it. If you want to go there, you go and you take what you need. You can come back again and again for you in the proximity, but also if a foreigner go around this, feel free. And yes, of course, we decided to add center because there was the idea to bring people together and try to co-build together. A museum is something is static, is around the past. It was my feelings. A center, especially a center for multimedia heritage. Heritage is something in common, something who has to grow up. And it was very important for us. And yes, we are open for all, but we have two categories very important. Sorry, women and young people. And a woman in museum, a young for museum, sometimes I took a group of young youth and I go with in museum. I know they can learn, but we needed an open space for all. And it was, yeah, it was not a museum, but we needed to work with the museum, with memorial, but also with individual initiatives. We need freedom. We need freedom.
Let me come in there. Let me come in there. Actually, when you mention about the open spaces, maybe let's look at maybe 20 or 15 or 50 years, or even 22nd century. What would a decolonized museum look like? Maybe Ngoni, you can come in here because we are looking at spaces where dialogue happens, spaces where we don't have a sounding wall between the curator and the visitor or the consumer of what we exhibit in these places. Do you think it is time to rethink about museuming? Should we abandon the concept of museum at all and maybe we go for spaces like what Assumpta is doing and just allow people come, talk about things? What would you think this institution would look like?
Well, it's a question and conversations I've been hearing the past more than 20 years. What is the future of museums? What should a 21st century museum look like? And if those conversations are still happening, it means that we're not sure we know. And again, I will go back to leadership and ownership. If it's a public museum, you have to deal with the state, the city, the province, the region, whatsoever. And over there might not be room for anything. It also depends on what kind of museum it is. If you are a contemporary art museum, you have way much freedom because you can experiment so many mediums. Now live art, performance, time-based, moving images are more and more present in museums today than in the past. So it really depends also on what type of museum we are talking about. And if you're a private museum, you will have more chances to convince the board, or if you're an owner like Assumpta, you do whatever you want. But if you are a public museum, and remember that in Europe and that in many countries on the African continent, the majority of museums are public museums. So there are let's say you report to the Ministry of Culture. The board doesn't have much power. At the end of the day, it's part of a political agenda. And when the government changes, the political agenda changes, and that also might impact what you're trying to do with your museum. Let's say if you are the director or something. So center gives you more flexibility. And actually, I don't know in other places, but let's say in France, the difference between a center and a museum has a collection. A center doesn't have a collection. That's a basic definition, the distinction between the two. So when you say a museum, it's because there's a collection. If there's no collection, you will call it a center. But you could be a center and still be a public institution and having to deal with, let's say, government change. And then you might be frustrated. But the future of museum is something my generation, the generation after me, has been discussing for more than 20 years. I wish museums were less silent places, but that's a personal opinion. I find them sometimes too silent. And let's say, well, I was joking about Venice Biennale. People who are queuing to visit the Biennale in the professional day, they are not silent in the national pavilions. They're not silent in the international exhibition. They are chatting, they are commenting, they are making nice comments, they are making nasty comments. They are alive and they are allowed to express themselves. Why are we not able to do that in museums? Why? I would like somebody to answer my question. If I was a museum director, I would allow people to express themselves. But there's maybe that's the reason why I'm still not a museum director. And every time I'm approached and when I have a conversation with the board, I decide, I can't deal with these people. I'm moving on. But
Thank you very much.
I can afford that. I'm old now, so young people don't do what I'm saying, huh? Don't do that. But the difference between a museum and a center, that's the main difference. But there is an interesting generation of curators. Some slightly younger than me, but not, they are in their 50s. So they are not that young, even if I call them kids, who are also reshaping the institutions from the inside as directors, as deputy directors, as chief curators. And I see what's happening in New York, Manhattan, what's happening in Brooklyn, what's happening in Johannesburg, what's happening in some small cities in France. So things are moving because you have visionary people all around the world who are making a difference. And so it's just about keeping an eye on those change makers. And the majority of them, unfortunately, are women. Sorry, guys.
Wow. What a way of concluding. I mean, the time I was given, actually, I have encroached on it. 1 minute late, but I'll ask my colleagues to allow me, ask each of you to give an ending remark from what we have just been doing. I'll be very glad if I can maybe start with Ngoni.
Okay, I guess if you are in this program, it's because you work in a museum or an institution, and I hope you love your job. If you don't love working in a museum, for a museum, doesn't matter what you're doing, what is your position in that museum. If you don't like being there, leave and get a new life. It's an amazing place to learn. I've been learning all my life, working with artists, with archivists, with historians, with sociologists. It's always inspiring to talk to audiences. So love your job, keep faith, and find the good. Sometimes you don't choose the museum, you choose the leader working in that museum, who is going to give you space to share your ideas, and who is going to empower you so you can empower your audience. So don't find the perfect museum. Don't dream of being a curator at MoMA. Find the good museum director, find the inspiring leader, and follow the leader. And then you will be the next leader after that leader. Voila.
Wow, thank you very much. I hope a few colleagues actually follow you people. I'll follow you myself, including yeah. So thank you very much, Ngone, for your submission, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate your enthusiasm, the support you're giving the fellows and the recommendations, and thank you for availing yourself to be disturbed, to be questioned. And also, I am creating another trouble for my colleagues, Miriam, Suruvi, and Bettina. We've had several questions that we've not actually been able to answer. I will ask you humbly to forward these questions to you so that you can help us answer these questions, and then we can pass them on to the fellows, especially when they are in this kind of period of time. And as I invite you, Assumpta, to give us your final remarks, it is my humble request that you avail yourself as well when the fellows come to Rwanda and interact with them, because I believe as we are living today, we are carrying this lab into our museums, into our spaces. Let's experiment, let's reimagine, and let's think together. So please, I'm asking you to be available when the fellows come to Rwanda. Please come and give your ending remark.
The first one is to thank you so much. Yeah, it was a great moment for me, and I thank you all. I agree with Ngone remarks. If I had something to add, I would like to add, yes, let's try the complementarity, interdisciplinarity, interculturality, and just try to make bridge between people, between museum and memorial, between countryside and cities. Try to do our best. I'm sure together we will be more, how can I say it, more powerful than the need to separate. I am not Cartesian. We don't need to separate. We need to combine our efforts. I was happy to be with you, and when you will come to Rwanda, be sure I will waiting you, and I will be happy to be with you. I thank you so much, and sorry for my English.
I mean, no, you don't have to be sorry. You don't have to be sorry. It was fantastic. You were audible enough. You were clear, and you were understanding. So this is not a problem, and don't feel sorry. So I want to say thank you very much for coming through, our dear speakers, and I really hope and believe, because the Museums Lab is a family, it's a network, and we keep one another at our hearts and in whatever we do. So anytime we come to you, kindly feel free to help us grow. We think together as curators, young curators and directors. If we need to engage with you, kindly keep the tab with us. So I want to say thank you very much for giving us this time. And I would like to thank my colleagues, my technical team, for actually making this work. We have not had any kind of issues with the technicalities. And I would like to thank the fellows. Thank you very much for picking up this interest and actually giving your time. I understand you guys are doing great work wherever you are. Some of you are directors of museums, some of you are curators and conservators, researchers, artists. Use this opportunity to connect. And the Museums Lab Alumni Network is live. So there is no come go, but come stay. Let's keep working together. And thank you very much, the Museums Lab team, for giving us this time to chat. I wish you the best wherever you are. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody.